Yep. Show us that shot. Okay. My name's Leighton Cooksey. I'm a project architect from FaulknerBrowns Architects, and I was the project architect for the core project at Science Central Newcastle. The client for the core were twofold. There was Newcastle City Council with a primary client, and Newcastle University. It was a slightly out of the ordinary sort of client arrangement. There was a joint venture between the two who was supposed to be developing the whole of the Science Central project. For the core building itself, the primary client was really Newcastle City Council, who were going to be owning and operating the building, but Newcastle University were a tenant, taking one of the floors, so they had a little bit of a say in that as well. It did make for quite an interesting project because both clients had got a slightly different sense of priorities in terms of where the front door of a building would be. The university were thinking of the sort of the north end of the site where the university campus is being developed at the moment as being the front. Yeah. The city were looking for something that was city facing. Our brief really was it was the first building on the site, so it was critical to get some momentum and get a kind of a catalyst for future development of the site. So at the time it was in the middle of the economic crisis and the downturn in the construction industry, so this was an opportunity to get things moving and to try and stimulate the development of the rest of the site. The client was really looking for a landmark building as a sort of a signature for first phase of development, politically to show that things were moving, but more specifically for the building, the building was an incubator office space. So the whole idea behind it would form rentable space for new businesses, for startup businesses, a lot of people coming from university, maybe trying to commercialise a research project from PhD level or whatever. So it was primarily about trying to overcome a sort of brain drain from Newcastle and retain graduates in the area, and to also stimulate inward investment. The process we go through is similar for most projects, and we have quite a structured approach to it in the office, working our way through the standard REBA plan of works process. With a multi-tenanted arrangement, there was quite a lot of workshops that had to be set up during the briefing stage, and we always undertake what we'd call a value management meeting, where we actually question and challenge the brief and question the client's motivations and project, and to try and tease out from them not necessarily what they need, but what they certainly not what they necessarily want, but what they actually need. Okay. So often challenging the brief and really getting under the skin of what the client is after is an important part of that process. And then we'll often take that and have a hierarchical approach to it, so we might group some of those requirements according to certain characterizations and so on, and from that we'll create a what we call a value tree, which defines what the key targets for the project would be, whether it be commercial or whether it be about a landmark building or all of the above. I have a basic background understanding of environmental psychology. My understanding of it is it's to do with the effect of the physical environment and place on people's well-being and sense of happiness and health. Yeah. As I understand it, it's kind of a multifaceted thing, and it's not something which we necessarily consciously apply as a discipline, but it's something that the facets of it which we would probably apply as what we would sort of deem to be good design anyway. Yeah. Certain projects might actually impose certain elements of environmental psychology. If we're doing a BREEAM building like the core, or if we were to, we're aware of things like well building, which we've never actually been through that certification process yet, but there's certain elements of that which we sort of taking away and applying to other buildings. There's issues such as active design and trying to get people moving through the design of the building, sort of biophilia. Let's have a basic understanding of sort of concept of biophilia in terms of improvement in air quality, reductions in CO2 and improvement in oxygen levels in the building. There's quite a few people in the office actually as more of a sort of an experiment of taking to sort of growing things around their own workspace. We sort of try and apply the ideas of environmental psychology, not necessarily in a rigid, dogmatic way, but we'd see it as being a part of what we deem to be good design. Everything we do is basically based around the end user and the end product. There'll be other factors, commercial aspects, our own sort of design aspirations might enter into it, but primarily it's about the end user. So the quality of the space is absolutely fundamental to how we would approach designing a building. In the approach to designing the core, I think if we were honest, there's probably elements of all three approaches to satisfying the end user and the client and ourselves. Obviously we wanted to get a good building out of it at the end of the day, as we would do anyway, but we have to be humble enough to know that that's not the end goal of everybody. So we'd like to think that we could do something that's architecturally pleasing and yet still satisfy the people that's using the building, otherwise we're not really doing our job. So from a client's point of view, there's obviously commercial aspirations and things that they needed to achieve, which was first and we were always working to a budget. So there's certain elements there which we had to do, but the quality of experience for the end user is primarily what the space was about. There are a few differences between the core and other office buildings that we've designed. I mean, primarily it's multi-tenanted, but it's a little bit more specific than that. It's not so much a multi-tenanted office, and we do plenty of those on office parks and that sort of thing, but it's a space, as well as actually offering workspace, actually creates an atmosphere which companies can grow. So it offers business support, but also a sense of community is very important. And the design of the building is based around the premise of getting people to interact and to meet and to discuss. These are small companies, maybe 2 or 3 people in some cases. So the maximising the opportunity for people to actually share ideas or share contacts and so on is first and foremost what the building is about. In terms of user experience, then as part of the BREEAM application that we had to do, there's certain elements which come into play about things like ceiling height, sense of space. We've got natural ventilation, which is quite unusual for a city centre office space. We've not done that for a long time. We had to do a lot of sort of research in background pollution levels and that sort of thing. But from that we could find that the upper levels could be naturally ventilated. So actually giving the occupants ability to open a window is something which definitely improves their sense of ownership of the space, but also their ability to tailor the environment to their own needs, so they can easily open the window without waiting for BMS system or whatever to adjust levels to suit themselves. So ideas of having individual control of your space was very important. Natural daylight was obviously a key factor as well. So we had fully glazed floor to ceiling windows, really high ceilings, all contributes to very good natural daylight, but also views out. So the floor to ceiling glazing was a big win actually. I think that was one of the most successful things we've found about that space. Approach to how we design the sort of central corridor space, we ensured that wherever you are within the circulation space in the offices, you always get a view out. There's always glazing at the end of the corridors rather than corridors being enclosed dead spaces. So there's always that sense of connection between what's happening outside, which is the internal environment, and the time of day or the weather or whatever it might be. Since the core completed, we've been back several times. We recently did get feedback from post-occupancy evaluation that's been carried out that was actually very, very complimentary. So there's been some excellent feedback, both on sort of opening, but in recent years I think people are very happy with the quality of the space and the environment, and happy that it sort of suits their needs as a business, and I think the success of a scheme is in high demand. It's only one of the most in-demand office spaces in Newcastle, so it's testament to not just the quality of the building. I think there would be the operation of a building is and the work that the operators do in actually some of the kind of the community facing things that they do actually helps foster that sense of sort of belonging to the building that everybody seems very keen on. People certainly feel like they're part of the family. It sounds a little bit cheesy, but I don't think we'd necessarily treat an architectural office any differently than we should do any other office, really. I think the principles of user comfort will be largely the same. Obviously things have changed now since we were all on drawing boards, and large north-facing windows. A sort of studio approach might have been really beneficial for natural light. We're all on VDUs now, so issues with glare and background lighting are clearly a big issue. But ventilation, getting airflow through the office, when we've had a few occasions where plant has broken down in the last few years, and we can get issues with heating not working. If you ask anybody in the office, it's either too hot or it's too cold. You can get that problem with any building, clearly, but I think having control over glare, a good level of natural daylight, particularly in the winter months, and better control of temperature. There's always somebody that's too hot and somebody that's too cold. There's acoustic issues with open plan. Obviously the core was designed to be cellularised because of the size and numbers of people that are working in individual businesses, and there's issues with intellectual property and all those sorts of things, which meant people require privacy. We don't have the same issue with privacy necessarily here, other than for when you're doing concentrated tasks. So for writing a report or something like that, I might have to take myself away to a meeting room. So I think, if I was to approach the design of the office slightly differently, it would be more in terms of different types of environment in different parts of the office for different tasks. So having more space for quiet, concentrated study, as well as for open plan areas for discussion and more sort of dynamic teamwork would be beneficial. I think the benefits or the pros and cons of open plan environment against a sort of cellular private working space is very much a personal preference. We've had a lot of discussions recently with the furniture company Orange Box, who came in to speak to us about a range of office environment that they're currently designing, which furniture systems which help create different kinds of environment within a space. And that's the sort of thing. A lot of the ideas of sort of personal control of space and ownership were things that they were interested in developing. Through those discussions, it became very clear that it is a very personal thing, and there's a lot of people who are very happy working within an open plan environment. There are other people here who you'll see just sort of sitting with their noise cancelling headphones on to try and concentrate. And it does depend on the task you're doing. It does depend on individuals. Having the ability to control your own temperature, to control your own level of task lighting or day lighting, or close the blinds and glare if you need to. I think that all, my own personal view is that actually improves staff motivation and well-being and comfort. I would say that we have perhaps subconsciously used some of the principles around environmental psychology in the design of the core. We'd always be trying to make the space as user-friendly as we possibly can. There's always going to be a trade-off, and I think there are elements which we probably could have done better at the core. There are certain areas where, through other constraints, it's not necessarily possible to give full control. So through some of the workspaces, large open plan spaces, there's got to be a degree of compromise in that. But I think overall in the general workspace, I think the environmental psychology aspects have contributed to a better sense of well-being than you'd find in typical office spaces. I think on the core, our understanding is that that it has improved user satisfaction, and it's difficult to measure productivity, and I don't think we've got a metric that would be able to reliably say that it has. It's always a very difficult thing to measure. I mean, you can measure things like absenteeism rates and so on to determine if people's well-being and health is improved. To be honest, we don't have that kind of data. But all the feedback we've had is that people are, all in all, very happy with the space. Certainly, it's been enormously successful, and it's not standing empty. There's a lot of empty office space in the city, and the core has been, highly successful. So we'd like to think that, at least a part of that is due to the internal environment and as well as the rent and the business support and the community aspects and all those things. It's all part of the same package.